Expedia, you're here. But are you here? You go to Hawaii in your head all the time. During meetings, in the car, Hawaii is on the mind. But when you're ready to go, there's Expedia, the one place you go places. Flights, hotels, vacation homes, cars. You can save when you bundle or book as you go and still save. So what are you waiting for? Expedia, the one place you go places. Members only. Savings vary.
The theory was basically that, people in the Bay Area have, emotional connections to these places. Either, they go to them once a year or 10 times a year, or they have a childhood memory from going to one of them, or some sort of impact was made on their life at one of these places, or they're just aspirational places they want to go to, and they never actually have pulled the trigger. And, for us, all of these places really don't get a lot of deep feature journalism.
This is Small Press Big Ideas, a podcast about the business of local news in the United States. I'm your host, Paul Gewertz. Small Press Big Ideas is about the opportunities and challenges that local news publishers are facing for their businesses. I'll sit down and talk with journalists, entrepreneurs, nonprofit leaders, and more in the local news industry to find out what's working, what isn't, and how the local news ecosystem can innovate and flourish in the 21st century. All right, today on the podcast, I'm joined by Grant Marek. Grant is the editor-in-chief at SFGATE in the Bay Area. And I was just telling him, I think he's got my favorite LinkedIn profile picture of any guest I've had on this podcast. And also, I've been a fan of SFGATE for a while. I've seen it pop up. I like the website. I like the reporting you do and everything. So Grant, thank you, man. Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming on here.
Thanks for having me on, Paul.
Cool. Yeah. I start every podcast the same. I'd love for you just to tell me and the audience a little bit about your background, your local media, kind of your story that's led to you where you're at now.
Sure. So I grew up in Southern California, Palm Springs area. I went to school at Cal and have spent the second half of my life living in the Bay Area. I have been a journalist my entire life. I worked for my high school paper and my local paper. I worked for the Daily Cal as soon as I got into Berkeley, and then have done magazines, newspapers, digital journalism. I've run large newsletters. I have worked in PR. I've done copywriting. If there is a job that involves media, I have tried it and landed at SFGATE. It's about 7 years ago now, and love it. When I started here, we had 21 people on staff. We now have a staff of 60. And last year, we passed the LA Times as the most read news site based on the West Coast. So good things have been happening for the last 7 years. We also, something I always like to point out, we used to be the digital home of the Chronicle. And in 2013, they launched a paywalled website, sfchronicle.com. And then they didn't really know what to do with SFGATE for about 6 years. And then brought me in 2019, and I was like, you got to separate the two brands. So we have had a separate independent newsroom ever since. We are on the first floor of the Chronicle building. Chronicle is on the third floor. So when I say we're separate newsrooms, we literally are separate.
Literally.
And we're also free. So I think we're one of the, not just the largest, but also the freest. You don't have to pay anything to read any of our journalism. And I will say too that, since I've taken over those extra 40 people that we've added, it really has been an expansion to cover all of California. And we now have journalists in 23 different cities across the West Coast. We are covering the state top to bottom, coast to Sierra. And we're really proud of that. Last year, we also launched an initiative to cover the national parks in the American West. We have hired journalists to cover clusters of parks in the Pacific Northwest, the Southwest, and Big Sky Country, in addition to all of the California parks, which we've been covering for years. So we really have expanded our footprint even beyond California now, which is very cool. And a lot of these, places are media deserts. They get a lot of rote travel journalism. And I think the stuff that we are trying to do is, good, deep feature journalism about, the people and places that, we think are important and have stories to tell that aren't getting told.
That's awesome. My next kind of question was just talk a little bit about SFGATE, but I think you did a really good job of that right there. I'm curious. That's why I love doing the podcast. I never know where it's going to go. So you grew from 21 to 60 and from what, 2020 to now. That's impressive. I'm Could you talk a little bit about what you attribute that to? If you've been there for the whole ride, that's because
Yes.
the narrative of this show is trying to combat is local news is dead. Local, I mean, it's not just local, I guess, but I'd love to hear what you've done. Yeah.
Yeah. So, when I started, definitely it was sort of a, what are we going to do? What are we going to cover? And the first expansion that we made was we hired someone to cover Disneyland, and do like legitimately really good deep feature journalism about Disneyland.
That's a cool beat to land.
And we hired someone to do Tahoe. And Julie Brown Davis is she was our Tahoe editor. She's now our California Mountain Towns editor, but she grew up in Incline Village and then was priced out of living there. And now lives in Reno. So we hired like an actual local who knows Tahoe better than anybody to cover it. We hired someone to cover the Central Coast, which we feel like is like just dying for more journalism. Andrew Pridgeon lives in Los Osos. He literally drives up and down the coast constantly. He's originally from Bakersfield, so he covers the Central Valley for us as well. That man has put some serious miles on his car. And then we hired someone to cover Hawaii. The Bay Area sends more tourists to Hawaii than anywhere else in the entire country. So they're all places that we think that the theory was basically that, people in the Bay Area have, emotional connections to these places. Either, they go to them once a year or 10 times a year, or they have a childhood memory from going to one of them, or like, some sort of impact was made on their life at one of these places, or they're just aspirational places they want to go to and they never actually have pulled the trigger. And, for us, all of these places really don't get a lot of deep feature journalism. Their local papers, I worked for some of them, have just been absolutely gutted. And we thought there was a readership opportunity there. Not just to give more good journalism to our readers who we know care about these places, but to locals in those communities who are like, well, we have this one tiny newspaper with 3 people who run the entire paper, and now they're down to 2 people. I think that there's just a lot of opportunity, and it worked. We hired all those folks in 2020. During the pandemic, I think sort of across the country, every journalism outlet had a massive spike in readership because people were afraid and they were scared and they wanted more information, but also they just were sitting at home on their devices, constantly looking at stuff. And for most outlets, they had a massive dip the year after that. 2021, going into 2022, like everyone lost that giant COVID bump. And for us, we continued to expand and kept that bump, which the readership for us is ultimately, because we're a free site, what pays the bills. So we just continued to expand where we were covering places. And the payoff has been our readership has stayed at over 300 million visits per year, which is wild. It's like so many visits at an era when I think... Yeah, and it's like it's also in an era when like it's harder than ever to get people to read stuff. And it's not just that, people don't want to, it's that getting exposure to them really is limited to a lot of social media sites. It is limited to Google, and like it's constantly changing algorithms, constantly making things more challenging. AI is now just feeding people snippets of every single story that's ever been written. You don't need to click in and read anything. So for us, it was like really about, let's try to understand who our reader is and what they're interested in reading more about and make our expansion bets in those places. And so 2 years ago, we launched a LA bureau. We hired away Eater's top writer, Farley Elliott, to run the bureau. He's an LA kid. He has eaten infinity burgers in Los Angeles. He is one of the most talented journalists I've ever worked with. And we added folks to cover food, the outdoors, and culture. And the idea there was like, we don't want to launch an LA bureau and start writing about the Dodgers. People here do not like the Dodgers. But we're like, I go down to LA a couple times every year. And, if you give me some great, interesting food story, it's probably going to be something that I add to my list. If you tell me about some, fascinating hike to a weird thing, I'm probably going to go on it next time I'm there. If you tell me there's a secret celebrity tunnel that I can walk through, I'm going to walk through that secret celebrity tunnel. And they're just doing great, really interesting journalism about a place that I really care about because I'm from Southern California, right? Like I am literally the reader that I am trying to reach, which is someone who has an emotional connection to that place. And then this past year, like I mentioned, the national parks expansion, it's been our most successful one ever. 12% of all of our visits last year were to national parks content. It has like surpassed our wildest dreams. And, a couple things happened there. One, we went and hired tremendous, like the best parks writers in all of these regions at the exact moment when the federal government was attacking the National Park Service. They were laying people off. They were increasing fees. They were making it more challenging for people to visit the parks and not run into issues or problems. And that has only continued. They now the federal government has instituted a rule that no park rangers at any of the parks can speak to the media. Everything has to go through a regional director who is read in on what they're supposed to be saying at all times to further truth and prosperity in America. And it has meant that, we are really equipped, unlike any other outlet, to be able to cover what is happening to the park service and the park system. It's really interesting. And we just kind of nailed it right at the exact moment that, you hope that you were set up to do that. And it's meant that, the New York Times, the LA Times, the Washington Post, everyone's following a lot of our reporting on a lot of these places, on a lot of the things that are happening, because we have folks who are on the ground, who grew up in these communities. Our Big Sky Country editor, Kylie Moore, she lives in Montana. She goes to the parks every weekend. All of these folks are people who live and breathe these communities. They are right next to all of the gateway towns. They're well equipped to be able to do really good journalism in these places, and they're not parachuting in when there is a crisis moment. And I think the quality of their journalism reflects that, and the readership does, right? Like, people want to know what's happening to these places that they care about. And, we love to say that people in the Bay Area love nothing more than a hike. And so national parks was like an easy overlay for us. Also, a lot of disposable income here. People have the money to be able to travel to other national parks. But, we really pretty quickly realized everyone in America loves a hike. And even if you've never been to Yosemite, you wouldn't mind considering going to Yosemite. So knowing what's happening in the crown jewel of, the American Park Service system is important.
Don't let tax refund worries hold you back. File now with TurboTax on Intuit Credit Karma. They'll find every credit and deduction to help you get every refund dollar you deserve, or your money back. Start filing today in the Credit Karma app.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love Yosemite. I've only been there once. I really need to get back there. Very cool. I was assuming when I asked that question that the beginning of it would be the COVID bump, because everybody saw that pop. But that's, man, awesome execution, and interesting way of getting there that you follow, right, about what people are emotionally connected to. Imagine that. I also got to say, can I just give you my application? I can do the burger beat. I can do the Hawaii one, the Disneyland one, the mountain town. I'll take any of those. Sounds like a fun place to work.
There's not a lot of turnover for these beats, I gotta tell you. Once people get the job, they're like, this is the dream job. I hear a lot on our staff, which is, great. It's what you want to hear.
Yeah, that's awesome. I lost my train of thought. That's okay. Another part of this show, I didn't have it in the prep, I guess, but it's also about sustainability, the business side. I know you're on the editorial side, but you've grown the audience and the connection with people like that. What does SFGATE look like? Is it what is it, the Chronicles that you said? Is that the parent company? How does that work? And it's just a typical ad.
Both of us. Yeah, Hearst.
Hearst. It is Hearst. Okay, I wasn't sure. I guess I didn't do my research well enough. But obviously, it's perform well enough to add that amount of staff. That's impressive. And that's kind of from the newsroom how you got there. Really cool stuff, man. I also wanted to say the lady on the Incline Village beat, I think you were saying. I'm in Western Colorado. I'm by a lot of national parks. I'm an hour from Telluride, so I definitely feel you on that. I took my wife and I went to lunch in Telluride recently, and I was doing my kind of Zillow, what's it look like here? Here's a 100-year-old bungalow for 1,800 square feet for $3.7 million or something like that. It's beautiful mountain. So it's good having people on the ground to know these issues and everything, like you were saying. So I feel like I'm kind of rambling, but good stuff. The year is 2026, so I'm legally obligated to ask you about AI.
Yep.
How you're using it. It's a big question. It's a huge thing. It's not like one thing. A lot of people think it's just ChatGPT or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm curious your overall thoughts on it, and if you're using any tools, and if so, how? In the newsroom?
We have a pretty strict, if you use AI for any of your journalism, you are fired.
Right. I've gotten that a few times on the show.
Just to be clear, because there are other newsrooms where that is not the case. I talked to a woman who is a senior reporter at Reuters who said they literally will just throw their story into AI and get it cleaned up.
At
I was
Reuters?
like,
That's
what the
crazy.
fuck?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? But that doesn't mean we're not embracing it. There are definitely lots of uses for AI that are helping us be better, faster journalists. One, we have a dev hub team in New York at Hearst Tower who basically like their projects that they are working on is trying to give us AI tools that make getting to a story a little bit easier. So one example is we have a script that basically looks at every single community meeting in California. There are like some parameters, like it has to be a meeting that is available, like on streaming, obviously. It has to be a meeting that doesn't require a password. Like there's some rules and regulations, but for the most part, it's a large number of them. It gives us notes basically on what happened in the community meeting, which is great because we have 60 journalists and there are infinity community meetings. But it gives us sort of a synopsis of what happened. And then our editors will go through there and be like, hey, there is a line item in this community meeting that actually sounds really interesting. And then it will tell them, where in the meeting this was discussed. So we can jump immediately to that rather than having to watch 5 hours. It doesn't mean we don't send people to community meetings that we already know are going to be important or have something discussed that we think our readership is going to be really interested in. We do those all the time, but there are definitely things that happen at community meetings that we are not at and we do not have access to easily that then turn into great stories. So that's one that I think is a really good example. The New York Times just did this. I think it was the Times. They had this thing about how they have a AI script that's pulling in any podcast discussing the manosphere. And they wrote some big story about tracking.
I think I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw that.
And I was like, I was so annoyed by this because I'm like, we already have this. We do this, but it's for us, it's for sports. And we have basically it pulls every single podcast that either a current athlete, former athlete with ties to the Bay Area has a podcast, all of the major sports podcasts, whenever they mention the Warriors or the Giants or the 49ers or, a select number of athletes, those are constantly being pulled for us, which is great because, we have 2 sports guys on staff and really they're looking for best available story. And a lot of times that is like a window into something that everyone would be missing. And, for us, we have such a massive readership, like we can shine a light on something that we think is interesting very quickly. So stuff like that is sort of the way that we are using AI. They have a bunch of other projects that are in the works that, maybe will be interesting, maybe will be helpful. But so far it's like taking large data sets and being able to quickly get, read on it that a journalist can then make a decision.
That's awesome. It's probably, I don't know. I would imagine it'd be easier to kind of spot these kind of use cases and everything just being in San Francisco, kind of in the belly of the beast there also.
Yeah.
That's where it's all coming from for the most part and everything. Just a side note. So let's see, 2019 to now, you've grown from 20-ish people, 21 people to 60. I'm curious, I like asking everybody, flash forward 5 years. Where do you see yourself? Where do you see SFGATE? Do you see that same trajectory? Like, if everything goes according to plan, you keep firing on all cylinders, hitting these waves, like, what do you see the publication looking like and yourself? Are you still going to be there? All that stuff.
Yeah, I love this job. They've tried to get me to do or consider doing a bigger job in New York. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. I like writing about my community. I like not having to get approvals on stories I want to write. I really enjoy this gig. I really like this newsroom. I love reading the stuff that people are writing. It's a great place to work. And I want to keep working here until I'm very old. I think for us, we're going to keep expanding. We're already looking at actually adding a Colorado Parks person because we think that is another place that probably needs one. We also we have a one-woman video machine, Melissa Cho, who is tremendous at her job. And while I will never again pivot to video, because I've worked at many newsrooms that attempted to do this and failed, we do think having a second video person would probably be good. So that's something that's on the horizon for us. We also want to split up the Central Coast and Central Valley between two people rather than making Andrew drive around the entire place. And North Coast is another place that, we want to potentially add someone. All of our additions are really, we do test balloons to make sure that we think that the interest is there. Before we had a Tahoe editor, 4 of us went up to Tahoe, rented an Airbnb, and did like story extravaganza. Like We went out, we interviewed people, we already had ideas for stories. Everything we wrote when we came back did phenomenally. And we thought it would, and that's why we invested in that. But it's always about like letting the readers tell us what they're interested in. And I think, one of the biggest things for me is like what is happening with AI and Google in particular. Like Google has had a massive drop off for every outlet in America in the last, 6 months. I think the thing that is going to prevail through all of that is just, again, good journalism. It's going to be a story that you can't easily spit out 5 bullet points to explain it. And so for us, it's going to keep being, where are there places that there are great stories and there is no one to write them? And, I foresee us continuing to expand, but that's going to be the guiding light. Is, do we think there are lots of great stories to tell in this place that our core readership in the Bay Area is going to be interested in? And, can we keep finding the right people to write them? But it's fun. It's fun to do the expansion stuff. It's fun to, do these test balloons and see how readers react. Most of the stuff that we've tried has worked. There's very few things that we've tried that haven't worked. We have a really good, I think, relationship with our readers. We know who they are. Because we have like such a large number of people that read us, we get immediate feedback on everything we do. If we do a headline test on our homepage, we can get 4,000 people to have looked at it and have found which headline is the most interesting to them in, 5 minutes, which, not every newsroom can do.
Right.
But it means that, if we take this like really analytical approach to continuing to grow, we can make sure that it's sustainable. Because the thing is, like, I don't want to go hire someone, fail, and then have to let them go. In the 7 years I've been here, we've laid off 0 people.
That's awesome.
And that's got to be like a journalism record. There is no outlet that has laid off 0 people in the last 7 years. But it's about, being able to understand the readership and being able to pivot people when something is not working. Disneyland editor, as the cost of Disneyland has gone up, it has been a lot harder to get people to want to read about Disneyland because a lot of people that were doing yearly trips are not doing yearly trips anymore. I've gone with my family. I have 3 daughters, and I'm like, this is insane. Like, we could go to Italy or we could go to Disneyland for one day. Like, what are we doing? And,
crazy.
So she's pivoted to do more general travel journalism in Southern California, where she'll still write occasionally about Disneyland stuff, but not at the same velocity she was before because like the readership is not there in the same way. So it's great. Love it. I foresee in 5 years that we're still going to be kicking butt. Hopefully we'll still have 0 layoffs and have a bunch more people writing more great stuff for, communities that need it.
That's awesome, man. Your instincts are in the right area. The title of this one is going to be just understand your reader or something. Yep. I mean, it's obvious. The proof is in the pudding. Really cool stuff. And yeah, I haven't looked at prices at Disneyland, but I'm scared, man. I have 4-year-old twin boys, and we haven't made it out there yet. But we're gonna have to do the trip to California and do the day there. So I gotta start
a lot.
Gotta start scraping away now. I feel like, yeah,
so overwhelming.
Cool.
Good luck.
Yeah, thank you. Grant, this was awesome. Really cool. Where can people find you? Where can people go? SFGATE.com, I'm guessing.
Yeah, SFGATE.com. I'm on every social media platform, Grant Marek. Some version of that should be easy to find.
Okay.
But yeah, just come to the site, man. It's free. Like I said, there's great journalism there. And we got something for everybody. There's a newsletter tied to just about everything that we write. If you want it easily digestible and sent right to you, we're at SFGATE on every social media platform ever. I would strongly encourage people to follow us on Instagram because Melissa's stuff is so awesome. I just love watching all of it. She is a character, and I think people will really get a kick out of the stuff that she's doing.
I'll give the Instagram a follow for sure.
Sweet.
After this. Cool. Awesome. Grant, thank you so much. This is great. And yeah, have a great day. Have a great weekend.
See you. Thanks, Paul.
Yep. Thanks.
All right. Talk to you later.
Thank you for listening to Small Press Big Ideas. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to help the show, the best thing you can do is to tell a friend or colleague and just take a few minutes to leave a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening to right now. It only takes a minute out of your day, but it really does help the podcast grow and reach more ears. Check back for new episodes every Monday.